When we think of a compact laptop, the original MacBook Air comes to mind, and that device was revolutionary for its time as it became an instant fan favorite within weeks of announcement. But in the last 11 years since it was first introduced, things have changed drastically, and right now the market is jam-packed with a slew of contenders ready to take on the crown. One such contender is the newly launched Asus ZenBook series, and we got to spend a few days with the UX443FN, which is the 14-inch laptop in the series, and we came out fairly impressed. The device does a lot of things right and could give the current gen 2018 MacBook Air a run for its money. This is Sandeep from RevAtlas, and this is the in-depth review. This video is brought to you by ZestMoney. Visit zestmoney.in and avail instant loans to buy your favorite smartphone. It's an entirely digital process with high approval rates, seamless EMI payments, and even zero pre-closure charges. But the best part of all is the 0% interest on most merchants, and you don't even need a credit card or a credit score either. The chassis of the ZenBook 14 is nothing like anything that we have seen before. The angle rear lid and the cleverly hidden bottom bezel gives it a very striking look, and one might mistake it for having no bottom bezel, which is quite understandable since the bottom bezel is less than 4mm thick. Coming to the build quality of the entire chassis, you can actually feel how well built the laptop is from the moment you pick it up in your hands. The lid feels very rigid with almost zero flex, and you still get Asus' iconic concentric circle design, which is much more subtle this time. The keyboard deck, on the other hand, isn't as rigid and shows slight amounts of flex when applied pressure, and while it's nothing to be worried about, one would expect slightly better sturdiness for the asking price. The hinge is very sturdy with no distracting screen wobble during those long typing sessions. What really astonishes us is that the laptop manages to house a proper 14-inch 16:9 display in a body of a laptop like the MacBook Air 13 or the Dell XPS 13. The hinge also lifts the entire base of the laptop by 3 degrees, giving it more room to breathe, but also arises the doubts about the longevity of the hinge as it's not really a tried and tested formula. All in all, in terms of build quality, it's a very well built laptop, especially when you consider the fact that it's really thin and light and weighs just under 1.2 kilograms. The ZenBook 14 has a 14-inch 16:9 1080p IPS LCD panel, and it gets decently bright. The colors are vivid and contrast is excellent as well, thanks to its true 8-bit panel which colors almost 100% of the sRGB color gamut. Speaking of the panel, it's made by AU Optronics, who are well known for making panels for Nvidia's BFGD and top of the line gaming monitors. In our testing, we didn't find any backlight bleeding or ghosting issues that are common to IPS displays. Under display indoors is a treat, and you'll be hard pressed to find any flaws, but the use of an extremely glossy panel means that you'll be able to see more of your reflection than actual content in a well lit room. The display has good viewing angles, and as far as color accuracy goes, the colors did look a tad bit cooler than we would have liked. It has good contrast in deep blacks and practically no backlight bleeding, but there is a contrast fall at steep angles. One thing we also notice is that the display itself looks wider than it actually is due to the narrow bezels on all sides. Usually a 16:9 aspect ratio on a laptop looks taller because the laptop lid itself has substantial bezels both below and above the display, but that's not present here because of the way that the bottom bezel is also hidden due to its construction. Even though the outdoor usage is a bit hampered due to a reflective display, you'd be hard pressed to find a laptop with a better display at this price point. We like the keyboard as it has a deep 1.4mm of travel, which is excellent for an ultrabook, and we appreciate Asus for not skimping on the keyboard just to keep the device slim. The entire script for this review was typed on this keyboard, and we were overall very satisfied with the typing experience. The keystrokes are relatively quiet and feel uniform with excellent feedback. We were actually shown the device at a pre-briefing event, and I was right away able to type with close to 100% accuracy. Perhaps a few mistakes, but I can't say the same about any other laptop, especially not one with such a small footprint such as this, and that's impressive. The backlight has 3 levels of brightness intensity, so you can adjust it to your liking or even turn it off, and typing in a dark environment was a non-issue as the keys are well lit with no issue locating the function keys. Right out of the box, we did not really enjoy using the touchpad as it's tiny, lacks a proper wrist rest, and even though the touchpad has smooth glass covered on the surface, it misses registering taps frequently, which spoils the entire touchpad experience and can get frustrating at times. Coming to the integrated left and right click keys, they feel lacking when it comes to the haptic feedback, but apart from these, it does get the job done. We highly recommend using a mouse with this laptop as the trackpad can be unreliable at times, especially under heavy workload. Asus has managed to integrate the missing number pad on the touchpad itself, and we feel it's a great approach, but the implementation is a bit improper as tapping the numbers on the touchpad lack any sort of haptic feedback. The response time is noticeably long, and just like the touchpad itself, it also fails to register touches at times, which again makes it unreliable. Luckily, the ZenBook 14 doesn't lack on connectivity options. Asus has included a Type-A USB 2.0 port, a USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-A port up to 10 gigabits per second, and a USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port as well with the same transfer speeds, which should keep you covered and save you from the dreaded dongle life. Additionally, Asus has also thrown in a full-size HDMI 1.4 port and a microSD card reader, which we appreciate. Unfortunately though, the Type-C port lacks USB power delivery for charging the laptop or Thunderbolt 3 capabilities, which we would expect from a laptop that's priced so close to the MacBook Air 2018. In terms of wireless connectivity, you get an Intel Wireless AC9560 module with integrated Bluetooth 5.0 support. Asus promises up to 1.7 Gbps of maximum Wi-Fi transfer speeds, but in reality we got somewhere around the 600 Mbps mark on our gigabit network. As you'd expect with an Ultrabook, the room for upgradability is very limited, especially in case of the ZenBook 14, where you're limited to upgrading only the M.2 SSD, as a RAM and Wi-Fi card are soldered to the motherboard, so make sure you get your desired amount of RAM at the time of purchase. The ZenBook 14 doesn't have any fingerprint scanner for fast unlock, but it does have an IR camera module alongside the general camera, which aids in Windows Hello facial recognition and unlock. This is much better than facial recognition using just an RGB camera, considering this is more accurate, faster, and even works when it's pitch dark. Asus boasts about ZenBook 14's integrated Harman Kardon speakers, but in our testing we found that the speakers are only average at best. The sound is clear and can emphasize the highs a little much, but we didn't find much distortion even at highest volumes, but then again the speakers aren't that loud to begin with. Seems like Asus here emphasized on sound quality more than outright loudness, which isn't a bad thing in our books. Audio via the 3.5mm jack was fine too, and there are no complaints there. Our ZenBook 14 review unit integrates an Intel Core i7-8565U processor along with NVIDIA MX150 graphics, 8GB of LPDDR3 2133MHz memory, and a 512GB NVMe SSD storage supplied by Intel. In day-to-day use, the performance is fluid and lag or stutter-free, but don't expect the device to get you through rendering and gaming workloads with ease. Even though the i7-8565U is a 4-core 8-thread processor, its TDP is locked at just 15 watt. Post which means that the processor gets throttled down from its boost frequency of 4.6 GHz to somewhere close to its base frequency, that's 1.8 GHz, but slowly ramps up to 2.2 to 2.4 GHz and stays there during multi-threaded workloads, and you might even see spikes to 2.8 to 3.25 GHz too. This might also be due to the lackluster cooling due to the form factor, where we found the CPU reaching 90 degrees plus with ease, and then throttling down heavily. Applications that mostly single-threaded can take proper advantage of the high frequency, as the laptop was able to score a solid 167 points on the Cinebench R15 single-threaded test. We also ran a Blender Ryzen logo render test at 150 samples preset, and it took the laptop 1 minute and 16 seconds to render, which is good for a laptop considering that the desktop i7-6700K, also 4-core and 8-thread at 4.6 GHz, takes around 1 minute and 6 seconds to render the same. It scored well on PCMark 10 too, which involves testing real-life workload like video conferencing, app startup, web browsing, content creation, etc. almost 75% more than the other expensive MacBook Air 2018. Our review unit was equipped with a 512GB Intel NVMe SSD. On initial testing, we found the storage speeds to be pretty solid, and here are some of the benchmarks. We found the battery life to be surprisingly solid. With normal web browsing at 50% screen brightness, the laptop lasted us close to 10 hours, though we'll be testing more to verify our results, but if reproducible, this is really very impressive for such a thin and light laptop. On the other hand, the charging takes quite long with the lack of any fast charging support. It took the laptop 2 hours 20 minutes from 0 to 100% in our testing, which is much more considering most laptops don't take more than 1.5 hours to charge. Apart from a few Asus apps and McAfee antivirus, the Windows installation on the ZenBook 14 was pretty clean, which is how most systems should come out of the box, and there's not much bloatware on this particular device. We were left very impressed with how the ZenBook 14 looks and performs. It's truly a 14-inch laptop in the body of a 13.3-inch laptop, and the thin bezels along the display, the excellent keyboard for an Ultrabook, and the lightweight yet sturdy build kept us satisfied throughout testing period, and we like to encourage other brands out there to learn from ASUS here. This is almost the perfect Ultrabook. We say almost perfect because the touchpad, heating, soldered RAM and slow charging at times left us wanting more. Maybe if ASUS decides to fix the above issues and add a Thunderbolt 3 support in future, we might pick one for ourselves. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you visit zestmoney.in and avail instant loans to purchase your dream products, be it a smartphone, electronics, furniture, and more across Flipkart, Amazon, and more than 100 other partners.